Brad Owen is most of your favorite poker video blogger, and today he is tasked with playing a flush draw correctly. Let's see if he can do it.
The next hand, we're dealt 9-5 suited in the big blind. The small blind raises to 200. We're going to defend a wide range. When we're closing the action in position, I call for 150 more.
They're playing 25-50, no limit Texas Hold'em, $11,000 deep. It folds around to the small blind, who raises it up to $200 for big blinds. If you are going to raise from the small blind, you typically want to use rather large sizes when you're playing in a deep stack cash game, or in general, because whenever you raise small, let's say to $125, 2.5 times the size of the big blind, the player in the big blind has to put in 75 in that instance to win how much? 450. They really don't have to realize all that much equity, right? So will your opponent realize more than 20 or 25-ish% equity in position with whatever they have? Yes, they will. So when you are out of position and you're going to raise from the small blind, you typically want to make it big. That is exactly what the opponent does. They make it $200. Good. And now notice Brad has a hand that is barely playable, the 9-5 of spades. He still needs to call. But if the opponent raised smaller, this would be a far easier call because then he would be getting better pot odds. And it turns out a lot of hands, besides the absolute best hands, kind of fall in this category where they're happy to continue, but they don't really want to put in a bunch of money. So the opponent did well to make it 200. Brad did well to call. Let's go to the flop.
We're heads up. The flop comes 6-3 deuce with 2 spades. We've got a flush draw with a gutter and 1 over. It's great for us. Small blind checks. I could certainly bet, but I check back for now.
The flop becomes 6-3-2. This is a situation where a lot of players from out of position do a lot of checking, both with good hands and bad hands, thinking that the player in position will take a stab at it. They'll be able to put in a check raise with their good hands and their draws and put the player in the big blind in a tough spot. So when the opponent checks, the question becomes, should Brad bet this type of hand? A gut shot straight draw and a flush draw that lacks showdown value. And it turns out you should bet this hand far more often than not. Typically, this is the exact type of hand that really wants to bet, because if you bet and get called, fine, you have plenty of outs. If you bet and get raised, fine, you have plenty of outs. You can call and continue. And if they fold, that's awesome. You just won the pot with 9 high. I suppose if you do want to mix it up every now and then, checking it back is fine. That way you do have some hands like this in your checking back range. But in general, I'm betting this type of hand almost every time. Anytime there's a type of hand that really, really wants to bet, like low showdown value, combo draws, I'm usually betting the vast majority of them and instead opting to check back some flush draws like ace high that can win unimproved at the showdown, or maybe king high type flush draws. This type of flush draw though, I'm betting it, and when I'm betting it, I'm going to bet it kind of big, like $400. This is a spot where the small blind really should not have a whole lot of hands that flop very well on this board, but the big blind can. And when you do start to bet something like $400, consider what you would do in the opponent's shoes if they did have something like ace high or king high or queen high. They're already in a nasty spot and they're going to fold a lot of that. And if you can make those hands fold when you have 9 high, that's a good success. That said, Brad likes to go check, check. Let's see what the turn brings.
The turn is another 3. The small blind checks. Now we have fewer opportunities to make a real hand. I semi-bluff for 175. Small blind might have something, or maybe he just doesn't believe us. He calls.
The turn is the 3 of hearts and the opponent checks again, kind of like on the flop. You should bet. If you are going to bet, you typically want to bet on the bigger side, because consider what we're trying to get to fold, right? We're trying to get ace high and king high to fold. And if we bet small, like 175, those hands are going to stick around a large chunk of the time. Now you may say it's fine if they call the turn and then fold the river, right? Well, not necessarily, because if they call the turn getting excellent odds, when they improve, they're obviously never folding. And every once in a while, they decide to make a big hero call. So this is a spot where when Brad does bet the turn, he's usually betting with something like a 6 or better, right? And a 6 or better on 6-3, 2-3 is really, really good. Also, a lot of your 6s don't care if your opponents fold out random overcards. So this is a situation where Brad, if he's going to bet, should bet larger. When the pot's 450, I would just start going chunky again, like 400. That said, he does go 175, and his opponent calls.
The river is the 4 of diamonds, giving us the straight. It's not super hidden since there are 4 to the straight on board, but we're still in a great spot. Small blind checks.
The river is the 4 of diamonds. Brad gets there. That's good. It's always nice whenever you have a 9 high and get there. The opponent, again, checks. Now, take a second to think about how much you would bet on the river. Would you bet small, like $200? Medium, like $400? Big, like pot? Or would you go over pot? Take a second, think about it, and let me know what you would do in the comment section down below. And while you're there, click the like and subscribe button for me. A lot of players in Brad's shoes think the board's scary, it's going to be hard to get paid, and therefore they bet small, sometimes really small, like $200, thinking, I just want to get called for a little bit. But you have to recognize you need a little bet, like 200, to get called far more often than a large bet. So this is a situation where when you are betting, you're usually betting full houses and straights. And full houses and straights, and I suppose trips, are almost always good. And with that range, you're going to want to bet big, because as you bet bigger and bigger, it allows you to bluff with more and more hands. As you use a bigger bet size on the river, you get to include more bluffs in your range, and that will essentially result in all of your opponent's bluff catchers being somewhat indifferent. And if you are value betting only, trips are better at this point. Even pocket aces is indifferent, right? And if you can make that hand indifferent between calling or folding, that is a huge success. So this is a spot where you want to bet big. I would probably go really big, like $1,600 in this spot. And you may say, if I bet $1,600, they're going to fold everything. And that's bad, because I have a straight and want to get called. And while that is true in this exact instance, assuming you're playing against these players anywhere near regularly, assuming they are decent, good, strong poker players, you have to think long-term. You cannot simply think, I have this type of hand that wants to get called. I need to bet an amount that gets called by a 6 or better, like 6 or pocket 7s or pocket aces, because you're going to play the situation over and over and over again in the future on average. That said, if that is not the world you live in, if you don't know your opponent doesn't know you, and you're never going to play with them again, and you don't care about being balanced at all, then bet an amount you think they'll call. At that point, you have to figure out, what do I think they have? When the opponent calls a turn bet, they probably have overpairs, a 6, maybe a 2. So if that's what I think I'm against, I would probably go closer to pot, maybe even something like 75% pot, to really target those hands. That said, if I'm playing high stakes games like 25-50 no limit hold'em, I'm usually trying to play at least somewhat based on good game theory optimal principles. So for that reason, I'm going to go big, both with this hand and bluffs.
I'm trying to knock the cover off the ball. I overbet 1,000. I've done this a few times now. I've gotten caught bluffing on a couple of occasions this session, including recently. Might look like I'm tilt blasting, but I'm not.
Brad goes for 1,000. I think he probably could have gone even a little bit bigger, but I love the idea and the logic of using a big bet size in a spot, especially with this hand. Let's see what his opponent does.
Small blind can't get away. He calls the large bet. We show the straight. It's good. The opponent is betting. He'd later tell me that he had pocket aces that he wasn't able to get away from. We're gaining momentum and we're getting paid. All of a sudden, the amount that we have to get back isn't so insurmountable.
After a lot of deliberation, the opponent calls with pocket aces. You may say, should they call with pocket aces? Brad overbet and he had a straight. Well, again, it depends on, is Brad's strategy rooted in good, strong GTO principles? If he is going to be bluffing with all sorts of unpaired overcards, yeah, you got to call with the pocket aces. However, if Brad is not bluffing often enough, pocket aces should hit the muck. So, in scenarios like this, always consider your opponent's tendencies. If Brad bluffs adequately or more than the GTO strategy recommends, all the bluff catchers should call. If he doesn't, though, they should all hit the muck. And the sooner you can figure out your opponent's tendencies, the better, because that will allow you to adjust far from the GTO calling strategy and maximally exploit your opponents. This time, though, Brad got paid. He won a nice spot. I'm happy for him.